Hey guys, what's up? It's Oliver, and this is Chaotically Creating, where you never quite know what you're gonna find. There is a mixture of art, music, games, and storytelling. And for this week, we are drawing some mandalas, and I build this first shape here, which is called the Seed of Life, and is one of the foundational shapes of sacred geometry, which is what mandalas are based off of. And sacred geometry is just geometric patterns that appear repetitively in nature, art, and science. And it's like a mathematical relationship that when you create these shapes, they're pleasing to the eye because of the just symmetrical shape of them. So here's another version of the Seed of Life. You can kind of see how I create it here, where you start with a center circle, and then you make what's called a viscous piscus, which is what we know as the compare and contrast wheel, actually. And it is where the center of one circle becomes the radius of another. And it is one of the most basic shapes to sacred geometry. And it can be used to construct rectangulars, polygons, triangles, squares, and hexagons. And that's essentially what the Seed of Life is, where it's made up of 6 viscous. And so I'm currently reading a book called Sacred Geometry for Artists, Dreamers, and Philosophers. And there's a lot of different ways that you can think about sacred geometry, and many people will think of the symbolism within it, but I'm more reflecting off of it of an artistic standpoint and learning about the art behind it and the connection to just being able to take less pressure off of art and create something beautiful without feeling the need for it to be perfect, because the perfection, in like air quotes if you will, comes from the structure of it and how you build it. And you can, at this point especially, I follow the video to make this full shape, but then I start going off and making my own stuff. And so the rest of this video is we make 2 different ones, and yeah. But in this book of Sacred Geometry for Artists, Dreamers, and Philosophers, it's by John Oscar Lieben. And it takes it very much from a perspective of harmonics, which in music, every note isn't just one sound. It's a stack of frequencies. So they're hidden within it. And so when you play a note on a flute, piano, or voice, you hear one pitch, but the instrument is actually vibrating at many frequencies at the same time. So the lowest note, or the strongest note, is the fundamental note, and then above it are harmonics, which are lighter, quieter frequencies that have an exact mathematical multiple of the fundamental. So if we were to play, it's easy to understand how it works on a brass instrument more because they have less fingerings. So if we take a trumpet, for example, and you don't put any fingerings down and you blow the lowest of it, you're going to get a C. And then you go again, playing higher and higher, you're going to get a G, E, G, B flat. And you can theoretically keep going. So I'm actually going to demonstrate here now what it sounds like. So this entire time, I'm not putting any fingerings down on the trumpet, and I'm just changing the way I form my mouth and my air, and it's creating new notes as I go higher and higher in the musical note thing. And so it relates to her sacred geometry in the sense of like how a circle, in the spiral, you can keep going and it follows a mathematical proportion. And what they do in the book, which gets quite complex and within it, is you can use the viscous Piscis to create these viscous piscis in certain ratios that when you create two lines and a cross point equals the like exact number of it. I'm still learning a lot about this. I'm going to put a photo up now of what I'm like explaining here with these different shapes, but they find these numbers and ratios by taking like a violin and dividing the strings. So like the first one is they divide it in half, and then they like keep dividing those sections into rational numbers that they can then put those cross points. Anyways, but I find it really interesting, so I'm going to explain it to you anyways. And hopefully you got something out of that. But anyways, sacred geometry equals music in a way that if you think, yeah, we're just going with that. But anyways, that's the little interjection there. But yeah, now we're on to the second one, and this one I completely go like freeform with it. I start with the seed of life again, and just kind of find whatever appeals to me. That's the beauty of making these, is when you start from the seed of life and the basic, it's one of the most basic foundations of it, so you can from there start just kind of with whatever feels right, I guess. And that's kind of what I did, and it shows just it's a way of meditation in a sense, and just kind of calming your mind, and creating something beautiful. And it, like, there's pretty much nothing that you can do to really mess it up, and you're gonna have something cool regardless of what you do. So it's a way of practicing art that is a lot more user-friendly and doesn't require, like, the goal is really not to think with it and kind of really get into the art. And yeah, you can read into that a lot with what I'm saying, I guess, but I'm not trying to make it too deep or anything, but mostly I want to understand geometry and sacred geometry because of how intrinsic it is to art and the history of art. I took an art class in college, and it was early historic art. So we started with prehistoric art and like cave paintings, and the Greeks really, well, just honestly, most of them used, you can see elements of sacred geometry in the way they built their buildings and the ratios that it created. You can see it a lot in churches and cathedrals with the mosaics that they have. It's part of Gothic art. They have, again, with the mosaics and stuff, it's all essentially based off of the sacred geometry and creating repetition, which is just so innate in what everything is, I guess. I don't know. But I really like this first one here because the outside circles are kind of like the circle of fifths for music. So yeah, now I'm testing out some colors because I wanted it to be like a nice gradient across. And the marker caps on these, I'm using the Crayola Super Tips. The marker caps don't really, especially when you get the darker colors and the purples, they don't match the caps like at all. And so I wanted to test it out before I put it on the big thing to be able to make it blend more. And you'll get some Magnus content here in a second. He's sitting on my lap. And another instance where I'm wearing Marvel pants, which I swear I do get dressed. But then I number them all, which I don't entirely follow when I get to the end there. I found a better order for them, but yeah, it was really nice actually making these, and I want to make more and make some more of the fundamental shapes because there are so many different ones. Yin Yang is considered part of sacred geometry, which is one of the more popular ones, I would say. But so of course I am going to connect it to the fantasy series I'm writing, which is a 4-book series that follows a main character named Aether, and he is Dragonborn-like creature, I haven't defined the race yet, but it's like a dragon human, essentially, like Dragonborn from D&D. Oh, here we got some Magnus content. But it follows the zodiac, and so this first mandala that I built, we can also think of it as the 12 zodiac signs. And I think that I want to include like sacred geometry elements in it, where like it might be part of like the architecture of the building, because I think I want in the book to be, it can't be a comic book, because the story is way too in-depth, and it would take way too many comic books for me to be able to tell the depth of the story that I want to. But I kind of want to make it so there's like pages of art within the book. So it's like a chapter book, but there are art pages throughout of all the stuff that I'm designing, because I don't know, I just have a lot of fun designing it, and I kind of want to create that combination, since I am both an artist in the like media of like fine arts, but also an artist as a writer and also as a musician. So that's like kind of combining all of this into one thing, I guess. And I mean, it is the kind of slogan of the channel, where it's like art, music, games, and storytelling. So yeah, this one's just really satisfying to look at with the background, and it's kind of cool because I feel like the center flower is like one part, and then the outside is another. And then we're on to the other one, which this one kind of looks like a scarab from Egyptian culture in my mind, and I think that's kind of where I was going with it. The centerpiece right now that I'm coloring brown. And it was, the world is heavily inspired by Egyptian culture, and I just, we studied Egypt when I was in my art history class, and just some of the art and just the intricacies of their art, and how we often think that ancient means it was like primitive or like bad or lesser than what we think of now, which is just a really interesting concept, that we think old means like bad or weaker than what is new. But their art had so much intricacies to it, and there was a lot of symbolism in their art. And I mean, we still see it today. Their art is filled with symbolism, and yeah, I really liked doing this, and I want to do more of them, like I said earlier. I want to like start from a different base, maybe, but I think they're really relaxing, and there is like actual Carl Jung, a psychiatrist, or no, not psychiatrist, psychologist? Oh shoot. He's a philosopher too, but he believed that the mandalas were a key to understanding the self and self-acceptance, and in other cultures it's seen as a meditative tool, and I don't think you have to think of it in the sense of a spiritualistic aspect that some use, and that it does have that aspect, but everyone can use any means of self-expression through different art and not have to make it, it's sacred in the sense that it's art and it's creation that you're making from nothing. It was just a really relaxing experience, and if you've never drawn a mandala, I highly recommend you try it. All you really need is a compass, and I mean, you can do it without a compass. It's just so much easier. Your shapes are going to line up so much better. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, hit that like button, subscribe, share. Really helps the channel grow, and stay chaotic. stay creative, and I love you guys.